Hi, Justina. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Jamie?
Good. It's good to see you. How's everything
You,
down in Pueblo?
it's hot. It's definitely the desert down here. But it's good. It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. I'm glad that you're here with me today. So if you are new, if you have not met Justina before, Justina and I connected because she does a lot of stuff around um, the gut brain axis, which she's going to talk to us a lot today, and just using that to support mental health. And so just knowing that the background that I have in mental health, we just kind of connected, and we're both really passionate about using the whole body to support mental wellness. So that knowing that if you've worked with me before, you know that I'm very passionate about the mind body spirit connection, and so is Justina. And so Justina, I'm gonna let you share with everyone a little bit about you, and also I think your story and how you got from being a personal trainer to where you are today is really, really interesting.
Cool.
And that was, so I would love for you to just kind of share that with people, because I think that that is, there's a lot of women probably in this group who are going to see themselves in
To
your
fill that.
story. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
would love for you to share that too.
Okay, cool, cool. Well, hello everybody, and thanks for inviting me to be here, Jamie. I am very passionate about the holistic approach, just like you, and really figuring out how our body operates on the inside, and that's what we get on the outside in our physical body. So my name's Justina Gonzalez. I am a mom of two boys. I have a 3-year-old and a 6-month-old boy. So my life is amazing and crazy at the same time. They keep me, it's fun. It's super fun. But I was a fitness professional for about 10 years. I started off as a personal trainer. Long before that, in college days, I was wanting to go to medical school, and I realized I always wanted to help people and I wanted to help them feel better. But then I realized that once you go to the doctor, you're kind of not really helping them anymore. You're just fixing the problem. So I jumped to the beginning of the spectrum and targeting your health and overall well-being before you had to go see the doctor. So I'm about the preventative care. And so I stepped in as a personal trainer about 10 years ago. And that led me on a path to starting my own fitness business that I own and operated in Denver. Um, which I absolutely loved, loved, loved. And I worked with a lot of other women and moms that I saw a lot of myself in. I was very, very achievement oriented. I was very driven. I always loved doing things and like learning new stuff and working multiple jobs and, making sure I was checking all the boxes on being a perfect mom. Not really perfect, but just trying to make sure that my kids had the best life possible, right? And I measured it to my own childhood and my own upbringing, which I think a lot of mental health stems from childhood. And so I knew that was a really important link, that when I became a mother, I wanted to make sure my kids had as many possibilities as possible. And on top of that, I was still just going through a lot of my own identity crises as a mom and stepping into being a new business owner. I had decided that I was going to quit my job when I was 5 months pregnant with my first son and step into becoming my own boss, my own CEO, because I was determined not to let anybody control my schedule or how much money I was going to make. And I knew that I wanted to be home with my child and not send him off to daycare for 8 hours a day. Like that just wasn't the path I seen for myself. And I had a lot of work ethic. Like I was proud of myself for figuring shit out and getting things done. And I think there's a lot of women that could relate to that, of working hard to provide for your family. And I never realized how much that was actually anxiety driven. And so to me, I was just always a go-getter, a hustler, and I was very prideful of being independent and not needing anyone's help. And that could be part of like my Latina background as well, and be very prideful on being a strong, independent woman. Um, but that showed up when I was forced to stop working and be with my baby after I had him. And so I was on maternity leave, and obviously I was being a mom and not actually working in my business or working in another side business that I had. And I was actually being present with myself. And I realized how crazy my thoughts were. Like, I had this never ending to-do list in my mind. I had from the moment I woke up, and I thought it was part of motherhood, of just caring for my baby. But from the moment I woke up, I would literally plan out my day in my mind. Like, I'm going to get up, I'm going to go to the bathroom, and then I'm going to wash my hands. I'll go get the baby. I'll change his diaper. I'll go throw it away in the kitchen and then start the coffee while I'm in the kitchen. And like, this was my thought process every day, all day. And I thought this was normal. And mind you, I was a fitness and health professional, so I was eating very well and exercising and meditating and doing the things that we consider to be healthy, right? You consider to be self-care and to manage your well-being. And so I just thought this was part of stepping into motherhood. A couple months went on of these crazy, overwhelming thoughts, and I started to soon step into more severe things. I was losing a lot of weight. I was losing a lot of hair. And, I would Google things. I would talk to other moms, and they were all normalizing it. It's normal to feel overwhelmed. It's normal to lose your hair. So it's like, okay. And I just kept brushing things off. But then there was a moment about 6 months postpartum where I started experiencing panic attacks, and full blown, I can't breathe. My heart's racing in my chest. Like, I felt like a car was parked on top of me. I'm in the bathroom trying to splash water on my face, like looking at myself in the mirror and saying, like, Justina, just calm down, like, just breathe. And I couldn't. Like, there were times where I would collapse on the bathroom floor and just, yeah, it just having anxiety. And I couldn't tell you what stemmed it or anything, just, and I think that's kind of the thing about anxiety. You really never really know when it's coming. And so that led me on some research into figuring out what the heck was going on. Because I called the doctor, we did a blood panel, and everything came back within normal ranges. And so the only thing that her solution was try to relax, try to get some rest, and here's an anti-anxiety medication. And I remember like leaving the doctor's office feeling really hopeless and like, really? That's all you're gonna give me? Like, yeah, I know I need to rest. I know I need to take it easy, which wasn't a part of my vocabulary. But I realized obviously there was something that I was not doing right. And that led me on some research into how I can holistically support my body and what I really was missing in my wellness, my plan. Because like you, Jamie, I'm a firm believer that you need multiple things. Like, I worked out 5 days a week, I was eating clean, I had my greens, I had my healthy fats, like I took my supplements, I got sleep with the baby as much as you could. Like, according to society, and even looking at me, I looked physically fit. You couldn't tell that I was struggling on the inside. And there came a point where I kind of stopped talking about it because I felt really shameful, like I was doing something wrong. And I'm supposed to be this wellness professional, and I'm freaking dying inside. And so I can't let anyone know that, because then what is that going to do for my business and my clients? And I'm going to be judged. And I think that always led me to wanting to achieve more, right? Of this feeling of not being good enough. And I know that could resonate with a lot of women because I help women in that area now. And so I get it. Like, I've been there. So anyway, and Jamie, I'm happy that you brought me on, because the research that I found was targeting your gut microbiome and in relation of how it communicates with your brain. And so what I've learned is that mental wellness doesn't start in your brain. It actually starts in your whole body, and specifically your gut microbiome. So that's a little bit of my story, and I'll let you like lead however you want this to go.
I put myself on mute because there's a lot of background noise around here, but no, I think that's perfect. I mean, one of the things that when I was working in the schools, a lot of times I would be talking to kids, and just as you know, there's a huge rise in anxiety among teenagers right now. And I think that in some ways it's because we're talking about it more, but in some ways it's because kids are on computer screens more, and there's like social media and like all these different things that are contributing to people's stress level and anxiety level and social comparison and all, we're looking at everybody's highlight reels all day long. We're not looking at like necessarily real life every day. Sorry, my husband's like opening the back door with all this yard work going on next door. But anyway, and so one of the things that when I started looking at this too, like one of the things I always talked to students about was taking probiotics, because that was like one of the things that I noticed was in the research everywhere, and all these different doctors were talking about it, was probiotics and gut health and the anti-anxiety diet and all that kind of stuff. And so it's something that I think we overlook a lot. And I am a firm believer in helping people like with the whole thing. And I was laughing as you're saying this, because I definitely I'm an over functioner. Like I was listening to Brene Brown's podcast a couple months ago. She was talking about anxiety, and she was talking about like, typically we see, when we think about anxiety, we think about people who are like, just like in freeze mode, right? They're like not doing anything. They are frozen, and their anxiety is like the stereotypical anxiety reaction. And what I realized is that there are so many people out there who are over functioners and who are experiencing anxiety exactly like you're talking about, where we are trying to go and control all these different things that we have control over in our lives, because that is the way that our anxiety manifests itself, and our stress and all of that. So just everything that you're talking about, like it's all stuff I think that like I've experienced. It's stuff I've definitely seen with students. Like the majority of my students who were struggling with anxiety are also the same students who were like top 10% of the class, like involved in everything, high achieving. And so, so I think we need to talk. Yeah, I think we need to talk about that more, because I think as women tend to struggle with anxiety or be diagnosed with anxiety disorders more than men do. And I don't necessarily think that's because we are more anxious. I think it's just because it manifests itself differently a lot of times in men and women. But yeah, I just think it's fascinating. So can you talk a little bit more about some of the research and just how the whole gut-brain connection works? Because I think it's really important for us to start to learn how we can support that, and how we can stop being overfunctioners a little bit, and use our, we are what we eat, right? So we are what we put into our body. So I would love to hear just a little bit more of like the science behind that, because you probably know I'm a science nerd. That's where we nerd out together.
Yeah, I love that. No, and I do just want to just make a comment about what you said about the high functioning students. And, if there's any women watching this later, I definitely did not think my anxiety was a problem because of all the things I was achieving. And so to me, that was like success. Like I was doing very good compared to everyone else, not realizing that it was this over functioning doing, and also I was a frantic cleaner. So like when I would be stressed out and anxious, I would
laughing because I'm like, oh my God, that's me. Like, oh my God.
Yes. Yeah. And I love a clean house, and so why would I want to stop that? But what I realized is you could do things and you could still achieve and you could still clean your house, but it's not coming with the same energy and intention as when.
We lost you. I lost your sound, Justina. Oh, Zoom technology. I'm just laughing because I like whenever I'm upset or anxious or stressed out or anything, I'm always cleaning. So.
Oh, there we go.
There you are. Okay, you're back. We're good.
Were you going to say something to that, Jamie?
No, I was just saying that like I'm laughing because that's like if I'm stressed out, like I clean, and that's how I like process a lot of times.
Yeah.
Cleaning the house. Yeah.
And sometimes that's good, right? Like if your house needs a deep cleaning and you had a rough week, go for it. But know that there's other ways. And so, okay, let me dive into the research because this is what's really, really cool and fascinating. What I found, and what started me on this research was my actual clients I was working with. I had a lot of women that their thyroid, they were on thyroid medication. And so most times people that have, thyroid dysfunction, they experience stress and anxiety, and they also experience issues losing weight, depending on which spectrum you fall on. And so I had started doing some research around gut health and dieting, like specific diets and foods to help support thyroid. And I started
Lost you again. Okay, so I think we're back. I think we figured out the internet issues. So Justina, you were talking a little bit about some of the stuff with like the thyroid that you were noticing with your clients. So yeah, I think just sharing some of that would be great.
Yes. So what was really cool and fascinating was that I found out that our gut microbiome is actually considered our second brain.
All right. So between the yard work construction, the lunch, your kids, like this is going to be a fun one. So it's all right. People understand. Most of the people watching this are probably also moms and understand what
Yep.
it's like to be working from home right now. So, okay. So thyroid. Yay.
Yes.
Here we go.
Yeah. All right. Let's try this again. And it's really important. And it's funny, every time I start to share about the gut microbiome and this new research, I have technical issues. And it's so weird. Like, internet does not want to let people know about this because it's so cool. So this is what I found. Long story short, we have a second brain, and it's actually our gut microbiome. And inside of our gut, for anyone that does not know, are tiny bacteria that are actual living bacteria cells inside of our gut microbiome. It's also comprised of a very intrinsic nervous system that's just as what's the word I'm looking for, complex as our brain. And so this is why the scientists and the researchers are calling our gut our second brain. More than 80% of our neurotransmitters are stored and made in our gut. So things like serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, even cortisol, the stress hormone, all of that is in our gut microbiome. And so for the longest time, and I'm sure you've seen this, Jamie, as a mental health care professional, we were targeting the brain only for mental health issues. And the pharmaceutical drugs only target the brain. And that's like an itty bitty piece of the puzzle, because the feel-good neurotransmitters that we want are actually stored and made in our gut. And a lot of the populations I worked with were pregnant women. And so they always say that the baby could sense if the mom is stressed, and the baby could feel what the mom feels. And the gut microbiome and the baby are so close, and it could pass those messages back and forth. And so I always say that this is actually our first brain instead of our second. And so what's really interesting and cool is that these two brains are connected via an axis, and that's your vagus nerve and your immune system. And so through this axis, it sends signals up to your brain and down to your gut. And you know this feeling of when you get butterflies in your stomach. Like if you're thinking about, something exciting like public speaking or going on stage, you get those butterflies in your stomach. And that's a good sign that your brain is talking to your gut. And then we all have
I'm just hopping in here because I was just talking about this in the breathing video that I did.
Oh, yeah.
I was talking about how like overeating and undereating, that's also like your appetite and your digestion are all impacted by, so if you watched my breathing video earlier today, then if for those of you that saw that, this is also a huge part of that. So anyway,
yes.
just wanted to point that out too.
I love that too, because one of the areas that I talk a lot about with my women I work with is cortisol and stress, especially because I tend to attract these really, like I was describing myself, these high achieving women. And what's crazy is we tend to use stress as kind of an excuse to fall off of our self-care wagon. Oh, I'm going to have a glass of wine because I had a stressful week, or, oh, I deserve to go out and have, when we could go out to eat, happy hour. And so it's like becomes this thing where you justify not taking care of yourself because you were stressed out or you had a stressful week. And so if we could get to the root of stress, right, and where it's actually made, which is in your gut microbiome, and change those signals that are going to your brain, you don't have to fight against willpower anymore. So maybe you're the type of person that's a stress eater, and you tend to go for, like, I'm a salty person. Like I like chips and guac, Some people like sugar and they'll go for the cookies or donuts. But it's literally your gut sending signals to your brain, telling your brain you need that food. It becomes um, this addictive way of being. And so when you have high cortisol, it actually tricks your brain into thinking that you need more carbs to feed it. And so then what do you have happen? You have an energy spike, and then you have an energy crash. And so then you need another pick me up. And it becomes this cycle. So now we're not only talking about like glucose levels, but we're also including cortisol and how it's really impacting the way you feel and that emotional connection to food. And I think that's the hardest part. So that's why I left the fitness industry altogether, because I learned that if I could not help women understand the emotions and the stress behind the why that they're doing the things without going into guilt and shame around it, right? Because that's the lowest vibration. I don't want anyone to ever work there. But coming from a place of empowerment and understanding the why are you like so tied to that sweet or that sugar or the wine or are snapping at your kids and freaking out on your husband, however you handle stress, we all handle it differently, then I'm really not helping you fix your wellness problem. Like, so I want to get to the root of it. And that for me is in mental wellness through the gut mind connection. And so what we know about the gut as well is that it could change within minutes, and it's very adaptable. So any toxins like lotions you put on your body or hairspray or makeup, it's all going to get absorbed through your skin and enter into your gut. And so you could change that. The pollutions, any lack of sleep, like a bad night's sleep will change your gut microbiome. And you probably experience this through brain fog and waking up groggy or being grumpy.
Mm-hmm.
It's
I
all
actually experienced when I was younger, I used to call it sleepy stomach, but like I could tell I would get like a different feeling in my stomach. And I can remember this even when I was a little kid, when my parents would wake me up early to like go drive to North Carolina. We lived in Kentucky and all my family was in North Carolina. But, so they would wake me up at like 5 a.m. and I can remember having this like weird sensation in my stomach because I didn't get enough sleep, especially as like a teenager where you need like, I don't know, 47 hours of sleep per night or something crazy. But yeah, I mean, I still experience that if I wake up and I don't have a good night's sleep, I feel it in my stomach. And I'm just putting that together now as you're saying this.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that it impacts my lack of, I mean, see, I'm still learning. I'm like in this field and I'm learning every day. It's so cool.
It's so fun. And, and that's funny you say that, because when I was a kid, I had a lot of stomach problems. I always used to tell my mom, oh, my stomach hurts. Like especially going to school, I had a lot of anxiety around school. And now when I was going through my anxiety, I had stomach issues. Like I had bloating like no other. Here I am, like the super fit, like I was way more fit then too, the super fit mom, but I had like this 3-4 month looking belly because of bloat, and I was constipated, or I would have really bad gas, and to the point where, and I'm like, TMI, but this is real life.
It's real life. I mean, it happens to all of us. So,
and it would dictate if I decided to go out, like if we had friends, like our plans with our friends, and if I had bad gas, like I would stay home. And so then that started feeding into my anxiety and it's just this cycle, right? And so until you address the root, the gut mind connection, then I really feel like you're never going to like have a full spectrum of well-being. Breath work is super important. Getting good night's sleep is super important. Eating healthy is super important. Eating or exercising, all of it is really important. But to me, it's like, this was my missing piece. And I'm finding that for a lot of other women.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I've noticed a lot of people, like I am seeing all these different people who are like on different like fitness boards and things like that on Facebook. And so many of them are like, I'm eating right. I'm exercising all the time. I'm doing all this stuff. And I literally like asked someone today, I was like, how's your stress level? How's your sleep? And her response was like, well, I have like young kids. My sleep is crap. My stress level is through the roof. And I'm like, that can all affect your hormones, And so I think that it can be overwhelming because, this week we've talked about acupuncture and sound healing and diet. And I mean, there's just so many aspects of this that it can be really overwhelming knowing where to start. So if, for those of you out there, if you're watching this and you're like, I don't even know like where to begin, just begin somewhere. Like, you know, take a few extra breaths, do some mindfulness, like eat some kale, you know, take a probiotic today or something. You know, just start. I think that's the hard part too, is like you said, we're doing all these things, and when nothing's working, it makes it that much more overwhelming and that much more discouraging. And so I love where you said, like, this was your missing piece. This was the piece of the puzzle that was missing for you. And yeah, I mean,
there's a lot of women, you know, especially because I'm working with those doers, those high functioning people, and I don't want to add to their to-do list. Like, even doing meditation is adding one more thing to your to-do list. Doing meal planning that's just adding and adding and adding. And I don't want that to be a thing. And so for my clients, I really start with the gut brain axis, because yes, you do have to take your probiotics, right? Take these Chinese herbs, and it does take you 2 minutes. But if that's the only thing that you did, then we know we're actually targeting cortisol. And over time, you will feel more resilient, and believe it or not, more people will be able to do more things. Like, your cravings will start to change. So like I said, you're not craving the sugar anymore. You will feel more energetic. And so if you are fighting fatigue and you can't work out because you're so tired, you naturally will be able to generate your own energy to work out. And if you are feeling overwhelmed, you will start to feel more resilient. And you're like, you know what, actually, I think I can pick up that acupuncture, you know, or that sound healing class. And so a lot of the women that I was working with also fell in that too, where they're like, it doesn't happen overnight. This is a holistic approach, right? But it's backed by research, and it's proving that these specific DNA strands of probiotics that I have in my mental fitness supplements, they actually talk to your brain, and it has everything that you need. So if you did anything, like if you're at the point where I can't even imagine taking one more thing, have that on your counter and let that be the one place that you start. I mean, breath work is just as simple, but for me, I know that it was hard. Like, okay, I need to remember to breathe. Okay, try to breathe. And I can't breathe in the moment of anxiety. So how am I supposed to focus on my breath, you know? And so it's just, everyone's different. And I love what you said, find what works for you and start at one thing. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So, Justina, we're going to put all of your infos all in like the comments and everything like that, and the title.
Cool.
So, so for those of you out there that are watching Justina, I can tell you from my own experience, I've been working with her for, I don't know, maybe a month now. And my energy levels, I mean, I have not been drinking coffee, which is also really good for my stomach. And those of you who know me, for me to not be drinking coffee, this is like a huge deal in my life. I love coffee. I still drink it occasionally, but I don't like being at the point. I was at the point where I felt like I was needed to drink it all day long. And I'm not feeling like that anymore, because I've been working with Justina to support my own gut brain axis, which has been super helpful. So even just, you know, if you're not all the way on the end of the spectrum where you're having panic attacks like you were, Justina, like, even for me, I just felt like I was fatigued and I didn't have energy, and I was just, you know, brain fog and all of that. And I feel like that since working with you for the past month has been super helpful. So that's why I wanted to have you on here. So if you want to get in touch with Justina and set up a consultation with her or anything like that, her info is in here. We have been sending out some of the supplements as part of our giveaways each day. So that's like part of the freebie. So there's definitely like fun little samples in there and stuff like that. So yeah, so I think that's where we'll leave it today. So if anybody has questions for you, they can reach out. If you know, anything at all, reach out to Justina and she can definitely help you. It has been, I can tell you, it's been really helpful around here. Yeah, with my energy and even my daughter, because my daughter started using some of the kids supplements that you use and support. So
I love that.
Yeah. So thanks for being here, Justina. I'm so excited to have you on today, and we'll be talking soon because we talk pretty regularly. So
yes. And thank you, Jamie, for having me. And I appreciate just sharing the space with all your women and what you stand for. You're doing amazing, amazing things. So
thank you.
I love it. I love all of this.
I know, it's so fun. So, all right, I'll talk to you
Thanks,
soon.
everybody.
Bye, you guys.